Hi everybody and welcome back. Alright, now we have a little bit of gameplay happening. We're able to set our player's colour and they're able to get points, etc. Now we're going to make our elevator or lift work and move the player up and down. Now this particular lesson is a little bit precise, I guess is a good word to use. So I'm going to encourage you to take it slowly and watch and listen to each step that I do in this video, and I would encourage you to pause the video, complete whatever the step is that I just did, and when you're happy that it matches up with what I've done, then start the video and keep watching. Alright, so let's begin. Over here in the workspace, we'll expand this out, and in our all lifts model we have our lift model inside. Now for this lesson we don't really need this ramp model in our way, so left click on the ramp model and come up to model or home, select our move tool, and we're just going to push it up the back there somewhere. Alright, so it's out of the way. It's still in our model, but we're only going to work with the shaft and the slide part here. Alright, now we'll just do a check on the shaft part to begin with. So left click on the shaft part and make sure that you have your properties window open, and we want to come down and check that the size is 2 by 20 by 2. So make sure that that matches, so that it matches the number in our in the project to mine. You can change it later once you work out how everything works. Alright, and the other important thing to change is the position, the Y position, the one in the middle here. Make sure that it is, change it to 11, because we don't want it to be below the surface of where we are. So we want to make sure that it's sitting up just above or right on our surface. So if you change it to 11, then that will work just nicely. Right, so that's our shaft part. Now next click on the slide part, and we're going to move this up to the top of our shaft to begin with. So just slide it up until it's level with the top, and we can zoom in there and just move it over so the red line is in the middle of or pretty close to the middle of our shaft part, like such. Alright, now once you have it there, I want you to scroll down in the, while we've still got the slide part selected, and anchored, which we turned on earlier, I'd like you to uncheck that. So anchored is no longer, it's false. Okay, now with the slide part selected again, right click on it and click on the show orientation indicator. Then click on the shaft part and also click on the show orientation indicator. Now you'll notice on my parts that the F circle here are both on the same size. So it doesn't really matter if both of them face this way. For instance, if I was to click on here and then click on the slide part, and see how they're both facing this way. Alright, as long as they are both facing in the same direction. Now I'll rotate my background where it was and the shaft background like this. Alright, so both F's are on the same side. Alright, once you've checked that, you can turn those indicators off. So right click and turn them off. Alright, now to make our elevator work, we're going to use a constraint, a particular kind of constraint called a prismatic constraint. Now a prismatic constraint will effectively lock our slide part to the shaft part on one axis, which is the one moving up and down here. So it won't move side to side or fall or do anything. It'll just be locked to this part, and then we'll change it using code. So to do that, come over and left click on the shaft part to begin with. Then up the top on model, so click on the model tab. Over to the right you'll see constraints and a drop down arrow underneath. So left click on the drop down arrow, and now mine are already turned on, which I'll just very quickly turn them off, but if yours are not, if they're just like this, the first thing I want you to do is come down to constraint details and left click it so we are showing them, and then once again draw on top. So you should see these two are darker than the show welds. Alright, so once you have it looking like that, come down to the create drop down, and in the list just down here you'll see prismatic. Alright, so once you have prismatic there, left click on it and move over to the top of our shaft part, and you'll see this little hand has appeared with an arrow. So I'll just what I'll do is zoom in a little bit on the top so you can see it clearly. So we'll just move in closely, and you see that hand with the little green ball. So put it in the middle towards the so don't make sure that the blue is on the shaft part, and then left click. And once you've done that, move across so that the slide part has a blue outline around it. Alright, somewhere. It doesn't matter if you move a little bit to the left, we can adjust that, but on the slide part and then left click again. And you'll notice that we end up with a green ball here and a green ball here. Alright, now next click on over here, you'll see that we have a 0 attachment that's been added to the shaft part, and an attachment 1 has been added to the slide. So just click on the slide part and come up to our move tool, and we're just going to move it back a little bit so you can see this constraint in here. And if I just move in a little bit closer still, what you're looking for is, do you see that that the line here is a nice solid brown line between them? So that's what we want. Alright, if you've got that, then that is correct to this stage. Okay, now we will define in our prismatic constraint some details that will make or help us make this work. So come over to the prismatic constraint and left click on it. Then down below in the properties, okay, we have a number of properties in here. So we've got yellow for the color, etc. Scroll right down though to the bottom, and you'll find a limits enabled box. Go ahead and click in there, which will give us some limits. Alright, and then right above that we have the actuator type. So there's a drop down box. At the moment it's none. Drop down and then choose servo, and we'll get some more information that we can make use of in here. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the upper limit. Now it might be a little bit confusing, but if you have a look here, we've got this green line sticking up in the air like this. Alright, now at the moment that is because this upper limit is set to 5. Okay, but we want to make it go the other way down the shaft. So we're going, if I was just to change this to -5, you'll see that it moves down on our shaft part, but we want it to move down towards almost to the bottom. So let's change this. We know that it's 20 high. Let's change this to say -19, and that will set the upper limit to -19. Okay, so if yours looks like that, everything's good so far. Now the lower limit, which will be at the top up here, is 0. So we'll leave the lower limit at 0. And now down here in the linear responsiveness, I want you to change this to be set that to 20. All right, it's sort of when it reaches a point, or how hard it tries to get from one point to the other, but we're just going to tone it down a little bit, and you can play with these numbers and you'll get a better idea of how they affect things once things are working. All right, but for now we'll just set that. We'll go with the settings that I've got here. In our servo force, which is how much force is used to move our slide part, we're going to make this 100,000. So 1, and then 1 zeros 10, then 100, then 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000. All right. We'll set our speed to 10, which you can change this later. So obviously that's how fast it will move from one point to another. And initially our target position, remember that we're starting at 0 up the top here, but we're going to move our target position to not completely to the upper limit, but we'll move it just above that, so it will be minus 18. All right. So just check you've got those numbers correct, and if you have, you'll notice that we have a blue line now, and so it's saying this part now is moving down to this position here. All right, if you move your hand, you can see that it's showing some more details. Now we'll do a quick test with this. So to test, just come up and click on File and Save, and then Play. All right, and if you were lucky enough to just catch the end there, you would have noticed that my slide part moved nicely down to the bottom and then stopped there, and it's sitting a bit above the ground where I'd like it to, and if I jump on it, nothing happens, okay? And that is exactly what we want. So if you got it to slide smoothly down from the top to the bottom, then you have everything correct and we're ready to move on. Now if you have any problems, all right, one thing that you can try, if you're sure the numbers are right, is to left click on your slide part and just move it down a little bit, so that it's, because sometimes if, for example, your slide part was above our lower limit, which was 0 at the top, then it can't do the job properly, so it just sort of gets locked at the top, sort of moving up and down. So move it down and then give it another play and check, and if it still doesn't work, then you'll need to watch the first part again, but you'll see it slid down nicely to the bottom. Alright, so assuming everybody is good up to this stage, now we're going to introduce, that's the hardest part done, we're going to introduce a script that will change our target position so that it moves up and down, and we're going to do this using something called a tagged script. So down in Server Script Service, come over and create a script, and we'll call this our Move Lifts script. All right, and I'll show you how tagged parts work. Now before we do this little part here, just come back to your workspace view and then come up to the top and click on Plugins. We will be needing this tag window plugin, so if you don't see that, and you can get more from the toolbox as well, or from the plugins over here, you can come over and click on Manage Plugins and have a look in this list to see if it's in this list, and you'll need to turn it on. Or if you want to look for another tag editor, which is what it's called, you can click on the plus sign, close this window, and in plugins in the marketplace, type in tag editor and search, and you'll see one here done by Sweet Heartichoke. All right, that's a safe one that I use, and it's free. You can go ahead and install that. Hopefully everybody will see this one up the top though. All right, so if you've got your tag window up the top, come back to our Move Lift script, and we're going to, up the top here, create a variable for a service called the collection service. So a local CS for collection service, game, get service, and collection service. Now the part that we're actually interested in getting access to, or the constraint, is this one, prismatic constraint. So we're actually after, we want to tag the shaft parts, inside of our models. So what we'll do is come over to the workspace area and click on our tag window, and this window will pop up, and you'll see this add new tag. So click in there and we'll put in here all shafts. Alright, so all shafts, and then hit enter, and you'll get this box here with a light globe and a tick box. So make sure you click on the shaft part in here and then left click in the box. If you see a blue tick come up, then all you need to do is close this window and remember the tag that you put in here. We'll come back into our move lift script, and now we'll create a variable called tagged parts, and it will be collection service get tagged, and we need to put in our tag, so all shafts. So that will give us a table of these shaft parts that we can apply some code to, and when we have more than one, we'll loop through them. So we'll create a special for loop for, and then underscore, so shift plus minus sign, comma, TP, and that will represent each shaft part, in pairs, tagged parts, and then do. And now we can write our script as we normally would in here. Now we're going to create an endless while loop in here, and because we're doing it for each part here, we'll need to spawn it as a function so that it creates its own thread. So type task.spawn and then an anonymous function, and now we'll put our while loop in here. So while task.wait, and we'll wait for say 3 seconds, do. And what we want to do is this TP represents shaft, and then we want to access this prismatic constraint to change the target position. So what we do is type TP dot prismatic constraint. Now you'll notice you don't get the helper text come up here because this doesn't exist just yet. It'll only exist when it runs. So make sure you get the name of this correct when you type it in, or it will cause you problems. And then dot, and the thing that we're after, if you scroll down to target position, this is the one we want to change here. So target position equals, and we're going to send it down first. So initially we'll send it to the same spot, so -18, and once it gets to the bottom we want it to wait a little bit, so we'll add another task.wait of say 3 seconds, and then you can copy this whole line here and just put it down below, and we want it to move back up then, but not to 0. So let's make it move up to say -1. Okay, and that should be everything you need to do to get this to run. So let's click on File and Save, and we'll play. Right, now if everything worked well for you, then you should see something like this, where the lift is moving nicely up and down, it's stopping at the top and then down the bottom, and if you jump on it you'll notice it moves up and down very smoothly. There's no shudders, alright, and it's working very well. So hopefully you got that result, alright, and we are good to go to move on. Before we do that, you could tidy up though by moving your ramp model. Alright, so grab it and come up to home and move it back over so that it's squared up underneath. And just to check where it is, just move your slide down to the bottom so you can square up your ramp model there again around that part. Don't worry about the shaft because we're actually going to hide that later. So you just want that so that it's square around here, and leave your leave the slide part. You can leave it somewhere in the middle, just to make sure that it runs again. So if we run it again, that way it'll be within the limits. Alright, and there it is. It's moving up and down nicely, and we're good to go. Right, so just make sure you increase your version there again. So you've got a working copy of that. Move across 1.0, and I will see you in the next lesson.